Hi, Mike.
Hey.
First time I've spoken to you face to face, so to speak, as a world champion, both as an individual and as the captain of the winning Team England kayak fishing champions. How does that feel?
Well, it feels brilliant, really. It's a bit surreal. We went out with ambitions, but you never really quite believe it's actually going to happen until it's actually done. So pretty pleased.
Yeah, and this was the first ever official World Kayak Championships, right?
Yes, it was. It's sort of under the FIPS, FIPS Ed organisation, who organise a whole load of different events, and it was their very first one for kayaks, which is great news. There's a lot of other kind of kayak competitions, but this is on the big stage, so it'll only get bigger and better. But this was the first one.
This is the big one, and Team England not only won the team competition, but you won the individual world championship as well. So it couldn't have been more successful, really. So look, tell us where was the competition held? What's the format? And yeah, tell us a little bit about it, so that for people who not really have a strong understanding of kayak fishing, you know exactly how does it all work.
So it was in Portugal. It was up in the mountains. If you go due east from Porto, which is halfway up Portugal, and you're heading up across towards Spain, and you get up into the mountains separate Portugal from Spain. There's some incredible reservoirs up there and rivers full of fish. And this particular reservoir at the Sabor River, a place called Torre de Moncavo, which is an absolutely stunning place. I mean, beautiful village, nice people, great food, incredible scenery. Especially if you look at some of the photographs that have been online, there's just some incredible photography that's gone on, and I will post something as well. I've seen some photos people haven't seen, and in the venue, which is not a very old venue, which makes it unusual. It's only 9 years old since this valley was dammed. I think it's about 14 miles long, but it's incredibly deep. It's 300-400 feet deep in the middle.
Wow.
But it's not very far across. You know, it's like half a mile to a mile at the most across. In fact, I don't think even quite a mile, but it's long and snaky, and it's got different gullies and cutbacks and things that go on that makes it very interesting. So
yeah, long and thin and very deep. Sounds like Loch Ness. But yeah, and so you're fishing with lures in this competition only, and you're fishing for predators, yeah. And so what target species were there in the reservoir?
So in this particular reservoir, for this competition, it was bass and zander. So each day we had to catch 3 bass and 2 zander. There are some big pike in there as well, but I think they only catch them at a particular time of the year, and there's not enough of them to make it worthwhile putting it in. And each host country, the organising body, they get to specify which fish are going to be the target fish. So for next year, when we go to America, it's going to be all bass, spotted bass, largemouth bass, and smallmouth bass. So that'll be interesting.
Fantastic. So we'll get on to the makeup of the team in a second. But so when you're catching your target species, so you said it was 3 bass and 2 zander, did you say, each day?
Yep.
So are you measuring them? Are you weighing them? How does that work?
So we're measuring them. So we have an official measuring board, and you have to photograph them, and then you upload it into the cloud, and then they verify each fish, which kind of has made it kind of interesting, because I think they're still learning about how to do some parts of it. So the measuring rule wasn't 100% ideal. It was actually quite narrow. It was very long and narrow, and it needed to be a bit broader. So if you ever see any of the fish, the zander, for example, the big zander on the board, they're actually spilling off the board, which makes it slightly tricky. But the other thing that was a twist with this one is the zander only counted for half. So if you caught a 70 centimeter zander, it was 35 centimeters.
Right.
That makes sense. Whereas the bass were for 35 would be 35.
Okay.
So it slightly disadvantaged the zander, but that was fine. I mean, everybody knew the rules going in there, so it's all good.
Yeah, cool. So tell me about the team. How many people are in the team? Who are the guys you were fishing with?
Right. So we have a really good squad. We're allowed in this competition to enter 2 teams of 3. And so that's kind of what we had. So in my little group, it was myself, Andy Dugan, and Alan Robson. And in the second team, they're not the second team. I think we were called A and they were called B, but it isn't that there's an A and a B. We're just 2 teams as far as I'm concerned. You've got Mark Radcliffe, Martin Collison, and Sean Milner, and across the team, they're all brilliant anglers, all really good at Zander, actually, in particular.
Because you guys all fish at places like Rutland and Grafton a lot, don't you? So you're kind of used to, you're very used to fishing sort of vertically in fairly deep water. I mean, that sounds like it was deeper water than Grafton or Rutland, but I mean, it's down to sort of 50, 60 feet at times in Grafton and Rutland, even a bit more in Rutland at times, I guess.
No, Rutland goes to over 100 feet, and Grafton to 50 is about the most there. But it's different with this water because the Zander are not in the super deep water. They're in it, but they're not at that depth. You don't fish for them like that. You fish for them pelagically, which basically means they're swimming in the upper layers. You're not catching them on the bottom. It was interesting because I went across with Alan Robson the week before, went and did a recce and went on a local guided bass boat and went and had a good look at, I say good look, as much as you can do, have a look at the water. And we came away immediately with one understanding, which is we will be able to catch these Zander. And during our practice, so this was the first bit of strategy, during the 2 days official practice when we're out there with the kayaks, we will not catch them. We will stay away from them and stay away from where we know they are. So that we won't let on to any other teams, A, that we know how to catch them, and B, how to catch them or where to catch them. So that's what we actually did. We knew we would catch them. You still cross your fingers because suddenly everything could change by the time you get to the competition. And it all
Portuguese Zander might be different to British Zander.
Yeah, well, on our little practice visit, they weren't.
Right.
So me and Alan Robson, we had a few Zander off this bass boat, and we kind of when it's the official kayak training, when the other teams can see us, we're not going to show them what we're doing. We're gonna keep that to ourselves. And that mattered. That actually made a difference in the competition. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. But from a bass point of view, that wouldn't be a species that the team would be particularly used to fishing for. Obviously, we don't have them here. I suppose a few of you guys might have gone out and fished places for bass before, but certainly not a lot, I would guess.
Well, there's a bit of a story to that. So none of us had caught bass before 4 months ago. Right. So all of us, pretty much, bar one, we all went to, and Ian Pickering and came across as well. He's in the squad. He came across as well. We went to Lake Bolsena, north of Rome in Italy. There was a big European hobie competition there, which is 70, I'm not sure how many, 70, 80 kayaks from all over Europe, fishing for the bass. And we were going, to show ourselves in the competition, but actually just to catch bass. What are these bass like? We've never caught one. We need to catch them. So we went there. We had a really good time. We had a fantastic day. It's a 2-day road trip. There's over 1,200 miles to get there and 1,200 miles back, dragging trailers across France and down into kind of Italy. And so so those are the first bass we'd ever caught. And that was useful because bass, if people catch perch, bass are got some similarities with perch. They're voracious predators. They've got very large mouths, much larger than perch. But when you hook them, they go crazy in a different way. They don't fight harder. They fight differently. They have a tendency to want to shoot out of the water, and they oscillate. They shake really hard as they go in the air. And any jig, hook, or in their mouth is getting flicked backwards and forwards. If you don't stay tight with them and try and keep them down and get them to the net as quickly as possible, you're going to lose them. So we lost a lot of fish in Bolsena as sort of pre-practice, and okay, right, we kind of sort of worked out how that worked. So that was the only bass experience we actually had.
Wow, but I mean, you guys, that's some commitment that you put in there to not only, because I know, you have to pay all your own travel expenses and so on for this. Unfortunately, we don't get funding from Sport England or anything like that for our Team England team. So this will have been funded by the team going out to Italy, and then a couple of months later going out to the World Championship. So that's some commitment. So fair play to you. It's fantastic that it was a success. So tell us a little bit about the kayak, because I've fished in competitions alongside you. Me normally in a boat, you in a kayak at things like sort of World Predator Classic and Zandamania and things like that. But they're not just standard kayaks you guys use, are they?
No, they're specific fishing kayaks. So the ones we all use, as it happens, are Hobie kayaks.
These are paddle driven rather than having a paddle. And was there anybody in the World Championships using paddle kayaks, or was everybody on paddles?
There was a few people who were in paddle kayaks, but and funnily enough, one of our team, Mark Radcliffe, he's a big paddle user. He uses a variety of different kayaks, and he's very, very good angler. But the pro anglers, using your legs means you can use your left hand to steer and control the boat, which are the rudders on the left hand side, and your electronics if you're doing anything with that, and you've got your fishing rod in your right hand, assuming you're right-handed, and it allows you to sort of maneuver, position, and cast and fish all at the same time, which you can't do as well when you've got a paddle, because you have to stick that across your lap and then pick the rod up, and so it's a different animal. And the pedals on them, there's two different kinds of kayak. You get a propeller one where people are sort of like cycling a bike, is what it looks like. And then the Hobie ones, they're like a push pedal, and you have these fins that are underneath the boat. You have to imagine penguin flippers. You've seen how fast penguins move in the water? They've got little rectangular wings, which don't look like much, but that's exactly what a Hobie kayak is like. And these things do this and just power you forward. And then most of us have got.
And so the pedals are like an old-fashioned pedal car, are they, that go up and down, or are they round and round?
They go backwards and forwards.
So
whereas there are some other brands where it's a sort of rotating pedal, but ours go backwards and forwards, which I think I prefer, just from my lower back and knees point of view. But whatever, they're all great kayaks.
And how many rods are you allowed to take out with you on the kayak when you're fishing?
You take as many as you can get on there. So we have racks on the back. We're very organised, because if you don't stay organised, you'll get in a mess. So I had, on an average day there, I had 5 on board, but I saw as many as 11. I saw a couple of the local teams, Spanish, and also when we went to Bolsena, I counted on one particular kayak, some guy had something like 13 rods, and it was like I don't know how you'd have time to do all that, but they know their water. It's the way they fish. That's up to them. But when I think about it, of the 6 rods I had, which were covering different scenarios, 2 of the rods were the ones that caught. So I caught on a vertical rod, not unsurprisingly, and I also caught on a particular casting rod with small lures on it. And the other rods were there for different techniques, but they didn't prove to be necessary. So but you have to cover the bases. It's the same as any fishing. You can have a load of different competition fishing. You can have a lot of different setups.
Sure.
And you've got the ones you're probably mostly going to use, and the others are there just in case.
Yeah, and I guess when you're in a kayak, changing your end tackle while you're out,
you can't
it's tough. So you've got to really have the rod set up and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, the kayaks are an incredible platform. It's just the loss of time changing gear, if that makes sense. So when we snap off, that's when we lose a lot of time. So, for example, and particularly in a place like that, so we can cut this great big trees down there under the water. So you have to imagine this is a flooded valley. Coming down to the water's edge, you've got all the terraces with olive tree groves, and then you've got to imagine them carrying on down under the water.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They've been flooded. I mean,
so they're all still there, but that's brilliant structure for fish, I guess. So that's where the bass were a lot of the time, was it?
That's where the bass were for sure. The zander, not so much. Not so much on the zander, but definitely the bass were sitting in some of these trees. And a couple of times, because we could see it on some of the technology, sometimes you could drop a lure down and you can see this sort of tree standing below you, and your lure's coming down, and you see it coming down and coming down side, and then suddenly you get these little shapes come merging out to look at your lure, and then mostly they turned away and went back in. So you can sort of, you just suddenly go, wow, those fish are really tight to the trunk, and the bass are using it for A, self-protection, and B, cover to attack other bait fish. So it's classic stuff, really. And also, because the sun was coming up, they normally earlier in the year they'd be a lot shallower, they'd be tighter to the bank, but as we're in transition into winter, they were backing off and they were dropping deeper, and as soon as a bright winter sun came up, or late autumn sun came up, they would then tuck into the trees. So they would go up in the night, in the early light, if you like, and then come back in and be sitting in the trees. So yeah, it's interesting.
And I guess your electronics, your fish finders, would have been important to understand what you were fishing over, and more than probably spot fish, I guess, unless it was the zander that were sitting and finding out what depth they're
at. Both things. To be honest, I think we outgunned most of the other nations on technology. That was definitely an advantage to us. We got it. B, we know how to use it. We use it regularly in the UK. So there's two parts to that. One is particularly the sort of live scope, active target type imagery, where you can actually see fish moving and swimming in real time, as opposed to historic, which is what a 2D sonar does. You can see them sort of moving, but that's only part of it. That helps you to identify as much as any of this fish around there, and sort of maybe where they're hanging to. But for me, a big part of it is being able to see the structure in detail. So you can see when there's drop-offs and big boulders, and you can see them in real time by looking out at them. So you can see what's in front of you, what you're casting into. And so structurally, it's really important. And then I'd say, especially more so for the bass, for the zander in this venue, the electronics were critical for catching the zander. Funnily enough, in Bolsena, the electronics were pretty good for us catching bass when we were learning to catch bass, because we could see. We could see the bass moving in and out of the weeds in Italy. And there weren't any weeds here; it was just trees. And again, we could see them again, but. And as much as anything, that's about how are the fish moving and behaving, not just where are they and what are they. So every venue you go to is a massive learning curve. So yeah, it's brilliant stuff. Yeah.
Good. Right. So take us through the competition then. So how many days was it over?
So there's the actual competition days is 3 days, and you have to come back with 3 bass and 2 zander on each day. And then it accumulates. You get accumulated points over that time. There was 2 practice days, where a limited time where you could go out and scout and have a look around and get your gear ready and make sure everything was set and you could fish and see if you could catch some fish. And that's what happened. Yeah. So we took, we had a really good look, and each evening when we came back, we would have a team chat and we would share all the detail of what we'd learned. And the tricky bit was trying to catch these bass. So we knew we could catch the zander. Don't get me wrong, the zander proved tricky on a couple of the days, but we knew they were our best chance to get ahead on the game.
Yeah.
And that, but the bass would ultimately make the difference to where we ended up. And that's kind of how it unfolded. So we've got 3 days of competition, and you go out, and Yeah, and the way it doesn't come across in some of the results and some of the stuff that's been seen, and this is really important. We effectively had two teams, and some other countries had two teams. Some only had one team, but the way it went was, and it was a team fishing for the gold, a little group of three, if you like. And what actually happened was, England really got gold and bronze.
Right.
Right. But the rules say you can only have one medal.
Sure.
So our bronze guys, if you like, not the second team, but our guys who came in bronze, they dropped out, and I think Italy were bumped up from fourth into the medals, the third medal spot.
Okay, but those guys that effectively came third, they would get gold medals as well, did they, as being part of the winning England team?
Well, yes, that's the way we worked it. So the way we've looked at it all along is this is Team England.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. So, and the way to really emphasize that is this. We would never have discovered a really important thing that helped me to catch bass if a couple of guys in that team hadn't shared the information. So we had total disclosure. We had a map. We gridded out the venue. We actually each of us went off to a different area to go and fish it in practice and then report back. And then we shared that knowledge. And then even as you get late in the competition, you can have tactical discussions whereby someone will go and protect us. Someone who's, say, not in the running will go and protect a spot, waiting for the person who's got the best chances to actually turn up when they've done whatever other fishing they're doing. So there's a bit more team tactics goes on. So as far as we're concerned, we got gold, and that was it. And it's all six of us. We got gold, and it's as simple as that.
Fantastic. So what was the standings after day one? Were you guys in the lead? Where were you sitting?
Yeah, so it was a bit strange. So there's an individual story and the team story. So team-wise, I think we were, if I ought to look it up, we were first, I think, after day one as a team. And then after day two, do you know, I ought to look that up because I wasn't that interested in the team standings until end of day two, we were also leading. And then day three, we kind of put it away and finished it off. But for myself, as the individual thing, I had like an epic start. It was sort of surreal. So there were only 2 full cards caught, and I caught both of them. So I caught a full card on day one.
Throughout the whole competition, all 3 days, there was only 2 full cards. Right. Yeah. So the fishing was pretty tough then.
Yeah, it was. And I had both of them. I had them on day 1 and day 2. And in all honesty, that kind of didn't put me out of sight, but it was pretty close to it. So I would have had to blank on day 3 and somebody have the most incredible catch of zander and bass. And nobody in the other teams were catching both the zander and bass. They either had a little bias to zander and were not good at bass, or they had a bias to bass and couldn't catch the zander. So the American team, the guy who came third overall, Mike Elsey, he's a bass angler. He knows how to catch bass. He caught proper bass, big bass.
What sort of size did they go to in there?
They were up to, his biggest one was, I think, a 48 centimeter, which would be about 3 or 4 pounds. They go a lot bigger than that. But unfortunately, in the 2 weeks prior to our event, about a week and a half before, there'd been a massive boat competition on there, with 70 boats over 5 days, and they put the bass down is probably the best way to put it. They'd really hammered the venue. So, but the Americans, they really know how to catch bass, and it's a good job they didn't have more electronics and stuff, actually, because they would have been formidable, really. So for my own competition, when I went out on day 3, I just knew I just had to catch something. If I caught one fish, that would probably put it to bed. And
what did it feel like when you got that one fish?
Well, if I'll dial back actually to the first 2 days, because it was a bit special. So on day 1, when I went out, so our strategy was go for the zander early, put them away, go bass fishing. So literally I go straight out from the launch on day one, and then bang, within 7 or 8 minutes, I've got a zander. And that's excellent. So get that one, measure it, put it back. That's quite a nervous fish, that first fish. You know, you're talking to it as you bring it up. Don't come off, don't come off.
Yeah, I bet.
All that kind of stuff. And then literally in under an hour, I got the second one, which was a decent fish. So measured up with that. Right, I'm off bass fishing.
What sort of size was a decent fish for there?
The biggest I had was 76 centimeters.
Right. Oh, that's nice fish. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of them were in the 50s and 60s. There weren't any really small ones around. And
for people who don't measure fish, what at 70 would be about what, 7-8 pounds?
Yeah, not quite as big as that. They were quite lean fish.
Right.
They weren't
Okay.
as bigger bellied as you'd get in Grafham or Rutland.
Yeah.
So they're slightly skinnier fish.
So 5 or 6 pound probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sort of, all day. And so I got them, and then I went to this bass fishing spot that we'd found with Mark Radcliffe on the last day of practice, and I went there. I got, by the way, that was a 40-minute pedal. So straight away, tactically, you're sacrificing a 40-minute journey there and back. That's non-fishing time. So you're taking an hour and 20 minutes out of your 7 hours of competition. So it's quite a decision. It's a tactical decision you make. You invest the time to get there. So I went there, and there was nobody else there, so that was good. And on my first cast, using a weighted fluke, which takes forever to drift down, I managed to get a 44-centimeter bass, literally first cast, and it was almost like, oh my god, this is amazing, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then Mark Radcliffe turned up as well in a similar area, just fairly close by. You have to keep 20-30 fishing meters apart, which we did, and then I managed to catch 2 smaller bass effectively using the method that we'd learned. Mark had discovered the day before. We were fishing very small paddle tails, sort of 3 inches deep, it sounds crazy, but 50 feet deep in the gaps between these trees. You have to imagine these trees are showing up on your finder like this. And we were using 7-gram and 10-gram jig heads with a tiny lure, and we could catch these smaller bass. But that didn't matter. Just fill the card, So literally within the next 2 hours, I managed to fill the card, get 2 small bass. So I was full. And then, but as Mark had come in, he told me that one of my zander was being questioned, being challenged as being measured. You have to measure them in a particular way. Was being challenged and was up for potential disqualification. So right. Go and get another replacement zander. So I 40-minute pedaled back, went out to the far side. Only had about an hour or so of the competition to go on that day. Bang, got a zander, and it was a 76-centimeter zander. It was a big one to nullify.
So it was an upgrade anyway. Yeah.
It was, but as it happened, there was nothing wrong with the other zander. It was to do with these measures. If you looked properly, you could see the markings. Okay, but that was an issue. So the end of day one was just outstanding. And then,
so with these competitions, the way it works is if you do fill your card, if you've got those, you can carry on fishing and fishing for an upgrade fish that's bigger than the previous one. So it's it's not you have to stop fishing. Because I think that happens in some other competitions, but it's that you can keep fishing and just try and catch bigger fish, so that it's your best 3 zander and 2 zander and 3 bass.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, when you think about it, even though the zander are only sort of counting at half points, it'd be easier to get a bigger upgrade almost on a zander than it would be on a bass, with our knowledge about bass, that is, because it was a bit tenuous. So to also go back, having got bass, to then go fishing for zander again, just to kind of makes sense to do that. Anyway, so end of day one, I was the only one with a full card, and that was pretty cool. And I think Alan and Andy had zander and hadn't caught bass. Then day two was similar. I set off in the first wave. The first wave, there was a 5-minute gap between each third of the boats, just so that the launch is a bit clear. And then you finish 5 minutes later, depending on what time you started. So I literally went straight out again, bang, got a zander within the first 10, 15 minutes. That's pretty good. Pretty pleased with that. But it then took over an hour and a half to get the second one. In fact, I got a bite and missed it, which is annoying. But it took another hour and a half, and it kind of did feel as if the zandering was slowing. But anyway, so I got those, and then did the same thing. Right, I'm off to my little bass honey hole, 40 minutes away. So I legged it down there, and managed to catch 3 small ones. So none of the big 44 centimeter ones, but three small ones. To get my full card again, and that took a bit longer. And then I came back and then was again looking for upgrades on Zanders. And in fact, Mark Radcliffe had come again to the same place, and he'd managed to get a couple of bass. In fact, he was there before me. He managed to get a couple of bass before he went Zander fishing. So day 2, full card, and I was like, wow, this is good. I was pretty pleased with that. And then led into day 3. So as I said, probably only needed to get one fish to sort of settle it. And it was really misty and foggy from the bank. So before they could see us going out and see what we were doing, literally 30 meters out, and they were gone. The bank was gone, and they couldn't see us. And obviously, my plan, sensible plan, go catch a zander again, get your zander in the first couple of hours. That'd be good. But as I was just going out, I saw, that looks interesting. I saw a row of bushes. It's hard to imagine this, but a row of bushes on the bottom in 50 feet. And I could see these fish moving. I'm going, that they look like bass. They look like the same sort of bass that we've been catching in this 40-minute away sole of honey hole in this corner. So I thought, well, I'll just have a quick look. So I put my little lure down and bang, bass. So I caught one straight away. So
couldn't have gone better, really.
Yeah, well, within 5 minutes of the launch, I got a bass. Nobody on the shore could see it, and it's funny because for the rest of the day, my fish wouldn't upload into the cloud, so they didn't know for a long time what I'd caught. And so anyway, I caught that bass. Then I went, right, okay, that's good. Right, now go zander fishing. Went zander fishing, and I could not get a zander. Got a couple of visits from predatory barbel. They come flying in. You can see them on the fish finder. They come flying in, have a look, and then kind of go away again. You think, it's a zander, but it's not. It's a big barbel. These predatory barbel or something else. Mark Radcliffe actually did catch one. So then I went, I'll go back onto this bass, the 50-foot mark, and check these bushes out again. And hooked one and lost it. I thought, they're definitely still down there. And then managed to catch a second bass. So I was feeling really pleased about that. And by this time, there's not time for me to go to the honey hole, to the 40-minute thing and get another bass. And also, I've just caught 2 bass here, and I know this is a zander area, so why would I go anywhere else? So I spent the next while trying to catch a zander, and it just not really happening. Just didn't happen. Anyway, we're getting towards the end of the competition now. I probably didn't need to catch. I didn't need to catch anything else, but I wanted to. I wanted another full card, is the truth. But then coming back in, I'm now. Literally, it's 5 minutes to go. The fog's all gone. The bank's there, and you get penalties if you're back late. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to keep fishing to the last possible minute because I'll nick one of these, get my third bass. And I get the little lure down, and I'm just popping it along the bottom, and then, no, I'm in a bush. And I'm really, the rod's doubled over. It's in a bush. It's a bush. It's a bush. And then, maybe it's not a bush. I started reeling it up, and it was a zander. And I literally got it aboard, unhooked it, measured it, photographed it, uploaded it with about 3 minutes to spare, and then legged it as fast as I could to the shore so as not to get any penalties. So
Yeah,
but the funny thing about that is the guys on the shore were watching. So Steve Collett, our excellent manager, and the other guys who'd already gone ashore, because I was the last one to dock on that day. I was fishing till 4:10. They'd landed at 4 and 4:05. They were, and they're going, "Oh look, Mike's got a fish." So they saw me like whizzing this thing in and having to speedily measure it in a bit of a flurry, just get it uploaded. And so that was the end of the competition. And then on that day, as an individual, I think I came 5th overall as an individual that day. So first, and 5th, and it's pretty obvious that it kind of put it out of the park, really.
Yeah.
So it was really nice. I mean, I've won a European Hobie competition before by a 1-2 centimeter margin over 2 days, and I caught a big pike in the last hour of a 2-day competition. That's tight, and that can go anywhere. This was nice because it was pretty comprehensive. The margin was big, so it wasn't like I did anyone by 1 centimeter at the last minute. Yeah. Which Brilliant. Is what happened in France, but yeah. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
And so what's the presentation ceremony like? I saw a video of you having to jump into a fountain at one point, and it looked like you guys had a brilliant celebration.
Yeah, no, we did. They played the national anthem, so I had it twice. I had it as the individual, and I had it as team as well. So when we did team, so we had the national anthem twice. And so that's never ever happened to me before. So that was pretty damn cool. And it was also just the happiness of everybody in the group, because like I said, the trek into Italy was one thing. We towed the kayaks to Portugal, and again it's about the same distance, almost exactly the same, 1,200 miles there and back. And it would have been a miserable journey back if we'd imagined we'd come last, or just missed out on a medal or something like that. But actually, obviously, it was pretty damn good.
You were just hooting the horn all the way back, were you?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Flags out the windows.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I'm a bit of a master of understatement, really. So everyone going, "Oh, you're right, really excited," and the rest of it. It's like, yeah, of course, I'm really pleased. But fishing's like that, I don't take neither victory nor defeat too seriously. So don't get me wrong, I'm really thrilled. But I don't get super upset if I get hammered either. That was good. And it was good because the planning and everything worked, the preparation worked, and then the fishing gods were also on your side. So there's always that part of it, because there's lots of talented anglers around. Anyone in the England team, if things had gone their way, could have done the same thing. That's my honest. That's not me just being modest or anything. That's my honest belief. We've got a heck of a squad of people. We've got terrific track records, and are prepared to put the effort and the commitment in it to do well. So they're already buzzing about going to America next year and fishing for the bass again. So that's really exciting. We'll see.
And from a lure fishing perspective, the street fishing team, the boat fishing team, which you're a member of as well, they've all done really well this year, haven't they? There've been some really good results, considering, particularly on the sort of the boat fishing side of things. Unlike the kayaks, where, like you're talking about, we're a bit ahead of the game with the electronics and what we're doing. On the boat fishing side, we're a couple of decades almost behind some of those European countries that have got big waters, that are used to fishing from bass boats and fast boats. And so I think the future of lure fishing in the countries is just absolutely fantastic. And the stuff that the teams are doing, the Team England teams are doing, is it's only going to promote that and see more of it. So fantastic. Congratulations, Mike. And congratulations to the whole team and everybody, all the support and crew behind that. Hey, there we go. Absolutely. You should have been wearing that medal the whole time.
I should have been sitting there.
But yeah, so it's absolutely fantastic on behalf of anglers all over the country, on behalf of the Angling Trust, on behalf of our club, the Lure Anglers Canal Club, which
Where it all
which
started,
you know,
didn't it?
I was 10 years ago, we were fishing against each other on canals with little lures, and to think that, you know, I saw you and Rich win our league, our club league, what, about 5-6 years ago,
Yeah.
and to think you'd go on to become well, European champion and now world champion is just absolutely amazing. So huge congratulations!
No,
Thanks
thank you.
ever so much for telling us all about it, and we'll be looking forward to what I'm sure will be an even tougher task out in America, trying to take the Americans on at Catch Fast.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting. It'd be great if we could medal there. That'd be fantastic. I'm not sure about, and certainly not about individual goals and stuff like that. But it'll be a great experience. That's what fishing's about, isn't it?
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Mike.
No worries, John. Thank you. Bye.